Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today I've got a treat for you. A lot of times guitar players are kind of stuck with what should they play, and they tend to revert to, the typical old voicings and kind of positions that they know on the guitar. Well, what I'm going to do today is we're not actually going to look at chords. We're going to look at 5 different ways in which you can use single notes to come up with some really cool sounding parts. What I'm going to do now is let me go ahead and play 3 of the 5 for you over a song called All Hail King Jesus. Afterwards, I'll break them down, and then once we're done, I'll give you another 2 ways in which you can use single notes. So be sure to watch throughout the whole video. There's 5 different approaches, and let's go ahead and get started right away.
There was a moment when the lights went up, when death had claimed its victory. The King of Love had given up his life. The darkest day in history. There on a cross
Alright, so essentially I had 3 different approaches with my single notes in those parts that you heard. I used swells, which I'm going to show you how to do. Secondly, I also just used single notes to kind of follow the chords. I'm going to show you how I did that. And then finally, there was a full-blown lead line where I played a melody with picking. And that was done in 2 different ways, one with long notes and one with more of a rhythmic approach. So let's go ahead and break that down real quick. The first type of playing that I did, like I said, I used swell. So I can pick a note and then I can play like a violin-esque style of playing on my guitar. And what's really nice about that, it's a gentle approach that adds a nice vibe to a song. And the technique is quite simple. You can do this with a volume pedal or with your guitar volume. So what I'm doing is I'm on my bridge pickup so that the note can really cut through. And then I pick my note with the volume turned down. So as you can see, you can't hear that with the sound. And then I open up my volume pot. So what's happening there is I just use my pinky to open up the pot, and then it's not long enough to do a full rotation on the pot. So then my other 2 fingers come in. So if I do it like this, you can kind of see what that motion will look like on the pot. So think of this like, imagine you've got this choir and they want to sing this really gentle oohs and ahs with the song. So that's kind of what you want to do with your guitar. You don't want to play, that'll be too much, right? You want to kind of just slowly open up that pot. And of course, like I said, you can do it with a volume pedal as well. That's a technique in terms of getting the sound to come out. And then secondly, in terms of articulation, I'm using a bit of vibrato, not a lot, but also you just want to find that balance. If you use too little, if you use no vibrato, for example, then it's just a note that's ringing. Nothing wrong with it, but we want our notes to have character. We want to infuse some character and emotion into that note. And that's where the string muting comes in. And you can also pick a note and then slide it. So that's a second type of thing. So vibratos and slides. You can even do a hammer-on. Or pull-off. And slide. So you want to use articulation to give character to those notes. I've used vibrato, I've used slides, I've used hammer-ons and pull-offs, and you can even use some bends within these volume swells. So for example, I can have a bent note that I can that also helps to give it a really nice vocal quality. So I've shown you how to get the sound to come in with your volume pot, or if you want to use the volume pedal. We've looked at articulation, hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides, vibrato, and even string bending to give character to the note. That's how you say it. But what do you say? What are the single notes that you have to play? Well, that's where knowing your chord tones come in handy. So for this song, obviously it starts on an E, so I just played an E note. Then the chords changed to C sharp minor, but then I stayed on the E because C sharp minor, the E is the third, the minor third of C sharp minor. And then when I went to B, I went to a D sharp. And when I went to A, I went to a C sharp. So that's why it's better to know your chord tones and then try and find notes that's going to complement the melody rather than just playing the root notes every time. Because if I play E, C sharp, B, and A. Nothing wrong with that, but as you can see, I've got some big jumps all over my neck. Whereas if I play E for the E chord, if I play E for the C sharp chord, then I play D sharp for the B and C sharp for the A, the notes are more closely aligned to each other, and then I get some common tones going on there. So that's single notes. Swell your sounding nice and gently, add some of those articulation techniques I've shown you, and then make sure you know what the chord tones are within the chords, because if it says E, I can either play an E, a G sharp, or a B. If it says C sharp, I can play C sharp, E, or G sharp. If it says B, I can play B, D sharp, F sharp. And if it says A, I can play A, C sharp, or E. Those are all notes from your triads. Of course, you can also use non-chord tones, but for the most part, when you see a chord, try and know what the chord tones are, because then that's going to give you at least 3 options to play over a specific chord. The second part that I played is when it went to the pre-chorus. And there's this line here. So in that case, it's more of a full-blown melody. So the second approach that we're looking at is when you play an actual melody on the guitar. Now you have 2 choices with things like this. Is you can play long notes where you get the notes to ring out like I've just played now. That's your one approach. The other approach is when you play more of a rhythmic kind of playing where you've got these 8th notes going like. So you can see there's quite a difference in the way that you can play that. The one is you play these long singing notes, and the other one is you playing like 8th notes, and you're kind of just following the chords, which is one of our third approach for using single notes, which I'll get to shortly. But I just want to show you one other thing. Remember, when you play guitar, there's what you are playing in terms of the notes, which is what you are saying, and then there's how you are saying it. So when we talk, it's not just the words we say, but it's how we say it. The combination of those 2 things, when you match that together, then your communication is going to be more powerful, because how you're saying it and what you're saying, it lines up. Now on the guitar, the notes are what you say, but these articulation techniques that I'm using is how I'm saying it. So I've already spoken about vibrato, hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides, and bends. So in this one, if I just want to play this line without any embellishments or without any articulation, it will sound like this. So as you can see, I'm just playing the notes, very matter of fact. I'm not really adding stuff to it. My preference is when I play, and of course you don't want to overdo this, it can get you into trouble and also just kind of ruin a moment. If you try and be too widdly on your guitar by just adding too many bells and whistles. But a way that I try and emulate the human voice is I might go like this. You see what I'm doing there is I'm hammering. And then pulling off like that. So you can add some of those things in to give some melodic flair to your lines. And then there's also the part that they played in the instrumental, which was... So of course, I'm adding a lot of bells and whistles, I'm adding hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides, and I'm playing around with phrasing. Whereas if you play that line without any of the phrasing and articulation, it will sound more like this. So when you add those kind of extra bits and pieces, use it sparingly, because if you do it too much, then your guitar playing will start to attract attention away from the worship song, the lyrics, and actually getting people in that state of worship, and it's going to detract their attention to, instead of focusing on the reason behind the worship, they'll start focusing on listening to all of your licks and stuff, which is what you don't want to do. So there is a way in which you can play emotively and expressively without making it about yourself. And just think about this like a singer. If you sometimes hear certain singers, then they do these vocal acrobatics just to try and impress somebody. That's not the kind of stuff that typically you hear from worship singers. But if you listen to like a really great gospel singer doing a worship song, they can really belt out and sing like awesome stuff. They'll sing circles around most people. And in that case, the focus is not on them trying to have vocal acrobatics, but it's part and parcel of who that person is. So try and find your voice amongst your playing, so that when you do things, that it's not about you, it's literally just the way that you express worship, and it obviously works within the context of the worship team that you are playing in. So that's the second approach that I've just shown you. More of a melodic thing, where you can either just play the long notes or you can add in some phrasing and articulation. Then the third approach is when you basically just follow the chords, but with a single note approach. And what I mean by that is, if you just look at your chords, like for example, if we look at the chorus chords here, the first four chords, E, E sus4, E, E sus4, then E over G sharp, C sharp minor, A, E over G sharp, B. So in that section, I basically played something like this. Turn around. So you heard me play that kind of a single notes where I just look at my notes low. You can also do it high, but before I show you the higher, doing it up the octave, you don't always have to play exactly what it's written. For example, when it says A in one of the parts there, I actually played an E note. But it works because E is the fifth of A. So remember A, the A major? You've got three notes for every one of those the chords that you're playing when you play triad. So you can actually play other notes that is not the root note. And sometimes when you do that, you can come up with some cooler sounding lines, because it's not just playing the root notes, root notes, root notes all the time. You can actually craft something together. And I call this third approach just following the chords. The first one was swells. The second approach we had was a full-blown lead line, a melody that you play. And in this third approach here is just following the chords and kind of seeing what you can come up with. So between these three things, as you can see, that's basically what I used in the song. And obviously, I'm not trying to play the song, the guitar parts note for note, because when you listen to the song, there's a lot of instrumentation happening. There's guitar doubles and all these kind of things. This is just a way to use a single guitar to have both melodic interest and rhythmic drive for a song using 3 of those approaches. All right, so let's go ahead and give you 2 more bonus single note approaches, and we'll do that by checking out another song and a different track. So what I'm going to do now is want to go ahead and play the next approach for you, which is using a percussive rhythmic approach. Let's play it, and afterwards I'll break it down. So this part is almost a combination of 2 of the previous approaches that we've looked at. Basically what's happening here is I'm playing some kind of a melodic phrase, but it's not like as vocal like we had with the previous example. Instead, this is using a pentatonic scale. I'm using this all downstrokes with a healthy dose of delay and palm muting. So it's much more rhythmic and percussive using single notes. So it sounds like this. So you can also ease up on the palm muting as you go, but basically it's from the D, or in this case, the D minor pentatonic or the F major pentatonic, depending on how you want to look at that. It's a motif that they are playing, and then they're repeating it over and over. So while the chords are changing, the electric guitar keeps playing these lines. And all that's happening there really is playing 12, 10, 10, 10. So on the G string, 12, 10, 10 on the B string, 10 on the G string. And then you're playing this with this downstroke rhythm and palm muting. So you do that twice. And then it goes 12, 10, 9, 10 twice. So that's a cool way in which you can incorporate, it's still melodic, but there's a big rhythmic drive behind it. So you kind of hear the part in motion there when you have this kind of approach. So now we've looked at swells. We've looked at playing a full-blown melody with either just a plain vanilla approach, just playing the notes, or adding some embellishments and phrasing to the melody. Then we've looked at following the chords with single notes, 1 note per chord. And now this is a motif where we are combining a melodic idea, but with a strong emphasis from a rhythmic perspective. So that was the 4th approach that you can have when using single notes. And what I'm going to do now in this next example, I'm going to show you how you can have yet a different variation of what we were doing by using more of kind of a rhythmic stab approach, much like you might expect to hear a horn section do in other styles like funk and R&B and gospel. Very percussive. Let me go ahead and play that for you now, and then afterwards we'll break it down. Alright, so this next part is borrowing an idea from a horn section. So if you listen to blues music and even funk music, especially a band like Tower of Power, they've got a really funky horn section where they don't play long notes, they play these short, percussive, and often syncopated rhythmic patterns with the horn section there that then these stabs really accent and add a lot of rhythmic interest to a song. So if I were to play or emulate some of that on the guitar in like a bluesy way, I mean, that is a common rhythm you've probably heard in blues a lot, and that came from, imagine a horn section where the horn section will play stabs like that. And you can emulate that on the guitar. So what I did over the track that I played is obviously I had a lot of delay and reverb. So if I just put the reverb back for now, not the delay, and just play the stabs, we were playing in the key of G. So I have this triad. So I can now play. So it's a very simple line, but it's that gives a lot of rhythmic variety and interest. So let me do this for you one more time over a different track using that kind of very syncopated, stabby approach, playing the single notes, and then you can see the application over a different track. Alright, so there you have it, 5 different approaches in which you can use single notes, so you don't even need to know any fancy chord voicings for this, but it allows you to explore all over the guitar neck, be more expressive, be more emotive, and kind of let your guitar sing. That is a really fun component with the electric guitar, and when you do this the right way, it doesn't detract from the worship experience by saying look at my licks or look at me. It actually adds a nice vibe and a different melodic dimension just because of the tone of the guitar and because of the sound. It adds a really great space to the overall mix. Now, one thing that you definitely need to have down is string muting when you want to play these kind of things, because you're only playing one note at a time, which means the other 5 strings are left exposed, and you don't want to let those idle strings ring out. So if you want to learn how to improve your string muting so you can play these parts with confidence and conviction, go ahead and check out this video that will show you the ins and outs of string muting for this style of playing.